Like 6 months out from my second breast reduction, and I want to just go ahead and tell you guys what I hated about my first. Oh, I'm talking too much for you or something? Because we can square up. So I know a lot of you have been asking me to update you guys on my breast reduction journey. If you watch the show that I'm on, or if you even follow me on Instagram, you know that I got a breast reduction in 2018 that I absolutely hated, and I'll get into the reasons why in a second. But I got a new breast reduction. This is my second breast reduction, and I will say I got it in August, so we're like 6 months out. Sorry, I just spaced out real quick. But we're like 6 months out from my second breast reduction, and I want to just go ahead and tell you guys what I hated about my first. Oh, I'm talking too much for you or something? Because we can square up. I wanted to let you guys know what I hated about my first breast reduction and what even prompted me to get a second breast reduction in the first place, and my review of my second breast reduction. So let's get into it. There are three main things that I absolutely hated about my first breast reduction. The first being that my nipple placement was way too high. So when you get a breast reduction, well, in my case, because I also needed a lift, he took my nipples off and placed them higher. In my case, I feel like my nipples weren't entirely too high. Not just me, everybody, all my friends that I showed my new titties to thought that my nipples were high. My girlfriend thought my nipples were high, and my shirts thought that my nipples were too high because they were out. Even what I'm wearing now, my first breast reduction, all of this right here would have been nipple. It just would have been out. Nipples would have been showing. I did ask my doctor that did my first breast reduction if that could be fixed, and he told me no, which was not truthful because my new doctor fixed my nipple placement. The second thing that I hated about my breast reduction was that I don't feel like he made me as small as I wanted. I was very adamant that I did not want small boobs, like, oh, I didn't want it like an A or a B cup, but I was an H. And I wanted to be a full C and still like maybe in the D area. And bruh. I wanted to be a full C, maybe in the D, maybe even a small double D area. But I was still like an EF after all the swelling and everything subsided. So I was very self-conscious about that because not only did I notice it, but everybody else noticed it. There were people that were like, that this is the breast reduction. They were in my comments like, I thought you got a breast reduction. And I was defending it. I was like, well, I didn't want to be too small, blah, 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 because I just felt super defensive about it. But in all actuality, I felt the exact same way. I felt like my boobs were still huge, that they still did not match my body. And I don't feel like I got what I asked for. So that was the second thing. The third thing that I absolutely hated was when we discussed giving me a lift, the doctor that I went to the first time told me that I had a decision between either getting a small breast implant to give me the lift, or he could lipo me and give me a lift that way by putting fat in my boobs. I had never had plastic surgery before, and going off the advice of that plastic surgeon, he told me to do the fat instead of the implants because you don't want to have to switch your implants out every few years. Like, it would just be too much maintenance in order for me to get, it would be too much. He said it would have been too much maintenance in order for me to get a breast implant. So he suggested me lipoing from different areas and putting it in my boobs for the lift, which would have been like up here. So I said, okay, fine, you're the doctor, I trust you. Nowhere in that did he tell me that that was probably a stupid ass idea because my boobs grew back extremely fast. Like my boobs grew back like that because he put fat in my boobs. And if you guys are not familiar with lipo or a fat transfer of any kind, it's very hard for your fat to grow back where you took it from. When you gain weight and when you lose weight, you don't lose fat cells and you don't gain fat cells most of the time. They just expand or they get smaller. But when you get lipo, it gets rid of them and then they put them back, whether you get a BBL or if you get in my boobs like I did, that's where the fat is gonna grow. So anytime I gained 5 pounds, 6 pounds, 2 pounds, it all went back into my boobs. So my breasts grew back extremely fast. And like I said, everybody noticed it. I noticed it and I just felt myself being self-conscious about my boobs all over again. So I actually, like a dumbass, went back to the same doctor to ask if I could get a second breast reduction because I was not happy with the first one. The first time I went to ask that question, he very much made it seem like I looked fabulous. There was nothing wrong with my boobs. It was all in my head. My nipple placement was fine, yada, yada, yada. And I left that appointment feeling like, okay, he's not really listening to what I'm saying, and he's not being receptive to the fact that I'm saying that I really don't like my boobs. Maybe I wasn't forceful enough with it. I think I was trying to sugarcoat it the first time I talked to him, but I was not happy. And I personally did not feel like he was being receptive to the fact that I said I wasn't happy. He wasn't being rude or anything. It was just I don't agree with what you see. I think your boobs look fine kind of situation. So then I hit up the person who handles like his PR or whatever, because the first time, because it was on a TV show, I got my boobs done for free. I was like, well, maybe if I just say, oh, we'll do it in exchange for promo, that he'll redo my boobs, because he wasn't doing it off the strength that I said that I didn't like him. So I was like, well, maybe he'll do it off the strength of just me wanting to promote him a second time. So I hit her up. We got all the way up into like a couple of days before the surgery before she told me that one of the demands that they had was that they perform my surgery on live. I did a whole video about this, so I'm not going to get into it. I'll probably link it up here or something, but I did a whole video about why I decided not to do the second breast reduction with them, but I'm not going on live. You're not doing my surgery on live. My life is on the line right now, and I do not want to be on live, and I actually would never go to a doctor that requires me to be on your live. You're not about to sit here, and if something goes wrong with my surgery, I'm dead on the table in front of everybody. If we have a nip slip, that's just not something I'm into. The only reason why I was okay with doing it for the show is because everything is approved through me, because it's my body and it's not live. Like, they were able to edit if there was a nip slip, anything. Everything was edited, everything was tasteful, and everything was approved by me because it's my body. If I'm unconscious on the table and you're on live, I'm not approving anything. So absolutely not. I was not doing it on live. So I really did some really extensive research into looking for a doctor in my area. I did not want to go to another state and have to recover in a whole other state. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be able to have my surgery and go to my parents' house or come back to my apartment. Like, I did not want to have to recover in a whole nother state. So I reached out to about 10 plastic surgeons, which that's the advice that I would give somebody. I would say you need to write down like your top 5, your top 10, and you need to have consultations with all of them, and you need to pick the one that you like. I looked at and talked to and did consultations with I did consultations with 8, and I contacted 10. I felt the best with a doctor called Dr. Whiteman at Southern Plastic Surgery. This is not an ad, just so everybody knows. I paid for my surgery this time out of pocket for this exact reason, that I didn't want it to be a transactional thing. I wanted it to be a genuine, I'm paying for my surgery and you're gonna do the best job that you can. So I reached out to the doctor. His name is Dr. Whiteman at Southern Plastic Surgery, and He agreed that my nipples were too high. He agreed that my breasts were way too big for my body. And we sat down, we had a long conversation, took pictures, mapped out exactly what I wanted in my boobs, and he made me feel comfortable from the get-go. So these are my boobs 6 months out. This is the probably exact size that I wanted. And besides moving my nipples down, he also lipoed all the fat out of my boobs. My boobs were like, the way that they are now, it was like so much fat, like up here, after I had got fat put into my boobs from my last doctor. He lipoed all of that fat out. He cut my nipple, he moved it down, and he was able to lift my boob without an implant or fat. He just is a good surgeon and was able to give me the lift without either one of those. So I don't have to worry about getting breast implants changed. I don't have to worry about fat growing on my boobs because I got a fat transfer to my boobs. One of the things that I didn't know that I wanted before my last surgery is the new doctor that I went to, Dr. Whiteman, actually performed my surgery in a hospital, which I loved. Nothing is wrong with a doctor having his own facility, but if something does go wrong during your surgery, you do have to be transported to a hospital. And this time when I got my surgery, this doctor already does surgery in a hospital. So if anything goes wrong, I'm already there. There's not a waiting period between something going wrong and then transporting me to the hospital. That was very important to me. I know a lot of you are wondering about the feeling that I have in my nipples. I will say that the first time that I got my breast reduction, I regained complete feeling in my nipples, and this time I didn't. So far I have not. It takes up to a year sometimes for people to feel feeling again. I have feeling almost completely back in my left nipple. My right nipple, I don't feel anything at all whatsoever. You could slice this nipple off and I would not feel it. I remember my girlfriend the other night was like squeezing my nipple, like squeezing the hell out of it, and I was looking at her like, yeah, nope, doesn't hurt, feels like nothing. However, for me, I feel like that is a great trade-off for me being happy with the size and my nipple placement. Like, I would much rather be happy with my boobs than have feeling in them, if that makes sense. Does that sound stupid? I don't know. I know a lot of you guys are wondering about price. With this doctor, fortunately, he works with what you can afford. See, I'll be right back. I know a lot of you, oh, sorry mamas, oh, shit. I know a lot of y'all are gonna ask me about price, so I went and got my folder from when I got surgery so that I can break the price down to you guys. I'm gonna let you guys know right now that since I was gonna go ahead and pay for my breast reduction, I went ahead and got 360 lipo, and I also got my hip dips filled in. So with all of that put together, my total for the professional fee was $69.23. The facility fee was $17.90, and the anesthesia fee was $12.32. So the total originally was $99.45. However, I went during the special and I got like almost half off. I am going to be reading comments on this because I know there are so many questions that people have that I'm not going to be able to fit into a video, but I want to help out anybody who has questions about breast reductions, the recovery time. Oh, and just so you know, my recovery time for my breast reduction is quickest. For me, both of my breast reductions were easy peasy. Lipo, on the other hand, is a bitch. You need to think real long and hard about if you want to do lipo. But my actual breast reduction was amazing as far as recovery. I will say I was out for the count with my breast reduction for probably a couple of days. That's it. No more, no less. Like, you're up walking around. Of course, like, you need to be careful because you don't want to rip your stitches. But as far as like pain, I will say out of all plastic surgeries, I'll say breast reductions is probably one that's probably on the lowest scale. But anyway, like I said, I am here to help anybody who wants to know anything more about this procedure. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments, and I am going to answer as many comments as I can. I don't know if I'm gonna get a lot of comments on this video or not, but I'm here to answer them. Okay, so I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.